Not to kick dirt on the man or anything, but while Hulk Hogan was lauded as an icon who entertained millions, it's no big secret that the Hulkster's life and career were often mired in controversy. Because for all the plaudits Hogan received for his look, charisma, and ability to control a crowd, he was also castigated for his backstage politicking, personal beliefs, and actions that showed just what type of person the man behind Hulkamania truly was. I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 biggest Hulk Hogan controversies. Join us! Number 10. Denigrating the WWE title. Winning and holding on to the WWE title was arguably what launched Hulk Hogan into the stratosphere. The Hulkster held the WWE title for 4 years after beating the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden on January 23, 1984, and became synonymous with the promotion's main prize. And Hogan was reigning as WWE champion when he ventured to New Japan for a showdown with the Great Muta on May 3, 1993. In interviews and press conferences both before and after the match, Hulk claimed that the WWE title was essentially meaningless, likening it to a trinket on a Christmas tree while branding it a stepping stone to the IWGP Heavyweight title. I'm sure Hogan felt he was just putting over New Japan's title and appeasing their fans, and that word of his comments, which were videotaped, wouldn't reach the United States. But they did, and needless to say, Vince McMahon was less than happy about them. Despite claiming to WWE officials that he was mistranslated, he gave the interviews in plain English, the evidence was crystal clear, and it increased tensions in the Hogan-McMahon relationship ahead of Hogan giving his notice and leaving WWE a couple of months later. Number 9. Union Buster. Despite being a multi-billion-dollar industry these days, professional wrestling still doesn't have a union. Unlike athletes in other sports or entertainers like actors, WWE stars are still classed as independent contractors and are expected to pay for some of their own expenses, such as rental cars and hotel rooms, while they're forbidden from working anywhere else. Things could have been much different had Jesse the Body Ventura managed to successfully rally the troops prior to WrestleMania 2. Ventura, who'd enjoyed success in Hollywood, wanted the boys in the back to unionize so that they could get fairer pay and other benefits, such as health insurance and a pension. But that didn't work for the Golden Goose, brother. When Hogan found out about Jesse's union plans, he put the kibosh on them by ratting the Body out directly to Vince McMahon, who, naturally, was steadfastly against the idea of his wrestlers unionizing. Ventura never did forgive his former friend for the betrayal, while many wrestlers have lamented what they perceived to be Terry Bollea's selfish actions, stopping something that could have been beneficial to both them and the wider wrestling industry. Number 8. Walking out on WWE. Hulk Hogan's return to WWE in 2002, after 9 years away from the company, proved to be a tremendous success for the red and yellow icon. At least initially. After stealing the show with The Rock at WrestleMania 18, McMahon decided to change course and put the undisputed title on the Hulkster at Backlash a month later. But there's no future in living in the past, and with Hogan losing viewers in the ratings, McMahon booked him to drop the title to The Undertaker after only a month. From there, WWE chose to use Hulk in a supporting role where he'd help put over the current crop, such as Edge, Kurt Angle, and Brock Lesnar. After being told he'd once again be doing the job for the next big thing in a rematch at Survivor Series, however, Hogan walked. He'd walk back in a few months later for another match with The Rock and a WrestleMania showdown with Mr. McMahon, but took off once more not long after due to dissatisfaction with his creative direction, as well as his shrinking pay-per-view payoffs. Number 7. Usurping the Hitman. After almost a year away, Hulk Hogan returned to WWE in February of 1993, setting up a WrestleMania match between the so-called Mega Maniacs and the tag team champions Money Inc. Hogan and Brutus Beefcake didn't win the titles at the Showcase of the Immortals, but Hulk famously walked away from Caesar's Palace with another piece of gold. After Bret Hart had dropped the WWE title to Yokozuna in the show's main event, Hogan came out to check on the Hitman and, lo and behold, ended up easily beating Yokozuna himself to win the title in a short impromptu match. Hogan later admitted that he'd planted the idea for the scenario in McMahon's mind so that he could have one last run as champ before dropping it back to Yokozuna and leaving the company to pursue acting. Bret, on the other hand, claims that he'd been promised to beat Hogan for the title at SummerSlam, but that Hulk balked at the suggestion he'd do that due to Hart's smaller size and Hogan's perception of him as a long-time tag team wrestler who hadn't yet gotten to the main event level. The situation caused long-standing heat between Bret and Hulk that never truly dissipated. Number 6. MAGA Mania runs wild. The relationship between Hulk Hogan and Donald Trump stretched back decades to when WWE used Trump Plaza, or the Atlantic City Convention Center, as the location for back-to-back WrestleManias. The Hulkster and future two-time president of the United States continued to be friends after, and Hogan was, in fact, the first choice to represent Trump at the Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania 23, before it fell apart and Bobby Lashley got the nod instead. Having once endorsed Barack Obama, Hogan threw the full weight of his support behind Trump when he announced his intention to run for presidency in 2016, and even put out that he wanted to be Trump's running mate. Hulk, who previously announced his own intention to run for the highest position in politics for a publicity stunt in 1998, went full-on MAGA in the run-up to Trump's second stint as president, cutting promos at the RNC and at Trump's rally in Madison Square Garden. Given that Trump himself is a lightning rod for controversy, I can already see the bloody comment section, here we go. A mere association with the president would be controversial, but Hogan threw himself at it like a double-fisted kangaroo, brother, earning him strong condemnation from some circles. Number 5. Bash at the Beach 2000. Heading into the 2000 Bash at the Beach pay-per-view, there was an issue over the finish to the planned World Heavyweight title match between Jeff Jarrett and Hogan. Hogan wanted to win the match and the title, while head writer Vince Russo wanted Jarrett to retain the title and then lose it to Booker T later in the evening. As a compromise, a worked shoot was devised, which would see Double J simply lay down for the Hulkster, who would win the match and walk away after cutting a promo on Russo to return months later for a rematch with Jarrett. This all happened as planned, but then Russo came out, after Hogan had left the building, and cut a scathing shoot promo on the new champ. When Hogan found out about it, he was livid. Not only because the shoot promo was a damning takedown of his character, but because he retained a full creative control clause in his contract, meaning that he had final say over the direction of his character. Bash at the Beach 2000 would be the last appearance by Hogan in a WCW ring, and he later filed a defamation of character lawsuit against Russo and WCW parent company AOL Time Warner. Number 4. Hogan vs. Belzer. WWE, particularly Hulk Hogan and his super best friend for life Mr. T, did a ton of promotion in the run-up to the inaugural WrestleMania. 4 days before the granddaddy of them all, the headline duo showed up on the TV show Hot Properties, where host Richard Belzer asked the Hulkster to demonstrate a wrestling move on him. Hogan duly put him in a front facelock, which caused Belzer to pass out, slip from Hogan's grasp, and crack his head on the hard studio floor. A disoriented, bleeding Belzer then woke up and cut to commercial. When the show came back, Hulk Hogan basically gave his own version of the "don't try this at home, brother" speech. Years later, Belzer, who suffered a laceration to his head which required a short hospital stay, sued Hogan to the tune of $5 million. Before the case went to trial, however, they reached a settlement, which Belzer later suggested was close to $400,000. He would use the money to buy himself and his wife a home in a seaside commune on the French Riviera, cheekily naming the property Shea Hogan. Number 3. Sued by the Graciano family. On August 26, 2007, Hulk Hogan's then 17-year-old son Nick was involved in a car crash in Clearwater, Florida, while street racing with friends in another car. John Graciano, the passenger in Nick's car, a Toyota Supra, sustained serious brain damage when the vehicle fishtailed and collided with a median strip and a palm tree. The 22-year-old US Marine and member of Nick's pit crew would require around-the-clock care for the rest of his life. While Nick ultimately served time in prison for the incident, his father would also be sued by the Graciano family. They claimed he was at least partly liable, as both the car Graciano was in, as well as the other one involved in the street racing incident, a silver Dodge Viper, were owned by Terry Bollea. Hulk had also purchased beer for Nick's friends, all of whom were over 21, earlier in the day, while Nick's own blood alcohol level was over the limit. Besides the fact he was under the legal drinking age anyway. The lawsuit was ultimately settled in February of 2010, with the terms remaining confidential. Number 2. Admitted steroid use and steroid lies. It doesn't take Lanny Poffo to realize that Hulk Hogan got so big by taking a little bit more than just his standard vitamins. The Hulkster trained hard, yes, but his comic book physique was achieved thanks to some pharmaceutical help. Hogan was a veteran steroid user, obviously, as was the vast majority of the WWE roster during the 80s and early 90s. When a steroid scandal engulfed the promotion, it was claimed that Dr. George Zahorian had personally sold the muscle-building drugs to Terry Bollea. When asked about the accusations on the Arsenio Hall show, Hogan denied using the performance enhancers. Those within the wrestling industry, as well as outside commentators, couldn't believe that he had the temerity to blatantly lie about his usage in the way he had. Years later, when called to testify in Vince McMahon's trial against the federal government, Hogan admitted to having used steroids dating back to 1976, though he denied that McMahon had ever given him the drugs personally or told him to take them. Everyone and Buff Bagwell's mother could see that Hogan was a heavy steroid user, but this deceit when it came to the subject made things a lot worse than if he just admitted what we all knew. And number 1, the racism scandal. In 2007, Hogan had a consensual, intimate encounter with Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend Bubba the Love Sponge, which was videotaped without Hogan's knowledge. In 2015, an audio recording from that tape of Hogan using a despicable racial slur while bemoaning his daughter Brooke's choice to date a black man surfaced. The rant also featured Hogan admitting that he was a racist to a point. The contents of the tape were, for many fans, the big leg drop as far as their Hulk Hogan fandom was concerned, while various wrestlers were outspoken in their shock and disappointment at what they'd heard their colleague and friends say. Hogan was apologetic in the immediate aftermath of the scandal erupting, but WWE chose to cut ties altogether, terminating his contract and removing him from their Hall of Fame, while scrubbing mention of Hogan from their website. Days later, it was reported that Hogan had used racist language while visiting his then-imprisoned son Nick in 2008, where he said they hoped they would not be reincarnated as black men. After 3 years on the outs, he was welcomed back into the WWE fold with open arms, but some people, whether fans or wrestlers, never forgot or forgave, and the scandal was a dark cloud that hung over Hogan during his final years in the spotlight.